Okay, so it's Nate from the 80/20 Drummer. In this lesson, I want to circle back to something that I've been asked a lot about in comments and on Instagram pertaining to jazz drumming, in which I still haven't really done a video lesson that did justice to it. And that is, how do you comp with the left foot? And I'm not going to talk in this video about really specific left foot voicing types of things like you might see with Roy Haynes or Jack DeJohnette. Because there's certainly a whole world of idioms where you're taking advantage of the left foot's ability to function as its own voice. But I want to talk first about this kind of middle ground of you're not necessarily always playing the left foot on 2 and 4, but you are playing in the house band at Cleopatra's Needle and you don't want to get yelled at. So obviously the most standard thing to do is 2 and 4. But if we want to break away from that, as I've said in earlier lessons, there's not a whole lot of guidance. There's not a whole lot between and but if you're wondering where drummers like Marcus Gilmore or Justin Brown get their left foot vocabulary as part of an ostinato from, you don't have to look much further than the drum tradition and drummers like Billy Higgins and Mel Lewis and Joe Morello and even Connie Kay. And probably the grandfather of them all, a dude I mentioned in the last jazz lesson I did, Mr. Max Roach. And the concept I want to introduce to you today is that if you're doing any sort of non-2 and 4 resolution point ostinato marking with your left foot, so that just means like the Mel Lewis thing of where you've got this kind of continuous comping 3-voice thing happening, but the hi-hat is mainly punctuating resolution points on quarters, where if you've got that kind of thing happening, you're basically playing a version of Max Roach. So what do I mean by that? I mean that Max was the father of foot ostinati, or the modern father of foot ostinati. You could argue that Papa Joe Jones did a bunch of really innovative stuff with it too. But for pretty much every meter, there was a max beat you could play. So if you wanted to play in 3, there were idiomatic max patterns for that. If you wanted to play in 6, not 2 groups of 3, but a group of 4 and a group of 2, if you wanted to play in 5, and even if you wanted to play in 7, there was a max ostinato for that. So my contention is that when you're playing different length phrases over 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 beat phrases, The hi-hat should not necessarily be anchored to 2 and 4, but should play more like a Max Roach odd meter bar over the top of that. And I think if you check out drummers, as I said, like Connie Kay and Mel Lewis and Joe Morello and Billy Higgins, all the way forward to modern drummers like Justin Brown, Marcus Gilmore, Greg Hutchinson, Bill Stewart, you'll see this type of phrasing with the hats. Okay, so let's take you through this. And I'll show you a couple examples of each sort of length of phrase. And then I'll play some over 4. How about that? So most common are the phrases that sound really good with the hi-hat on 2 and 4. And you need to look no further for that than Mr. Kenny Clark, Kluk. And I'm going to give you 3 that are very idiomatic to skip note pattern on the right cymbal, hats on 2 and 4. So the first one is just this. A lot of people play way too much when they're comping. You guys had asked me about comping. If you do this, 3, 4. And it's swinging, you're probably doing a lot better than if you're playing a lot of stuff that you're not really sure you're nailing. So that's number 1. You just at the end of beat 3, you can do that every 2 bars, every 4 bars. You can space it out, but it sounds great with hats on 2 and 4. So number 2 from Kluk is the offbeats of 3 and 4. So and the last one is the offbeats of 3 and 4 with the bass drum on the and of 4. So you can combine those. All of that stuff sounds really great with the hats on 2 and 4. In addition to a lot of your Ted Reed stuff. Like any of that sort of stuff from Riley sounds great. Okay, but it gets more interesting when you have phrases like because if you do that with the hats on 2 and 4, yeah, it's okay, but it feels awkward. So what is that really? That is the famous hemiola that I like to speak about so much. And that's straight out of the Max Roach waltz. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. But if you take out the 2 beats and just play it in a waltz, so the most basic place to put the hat in a 3-beat phrase is on beat 2, but Max was also fond of putting it on the last 2. Or even on beat 2 and the and of 3. So and the only rule for this is going to be a rule that you see in my courses and you'll see throughout the sort of vocabulary I play, which is just don't get in your own way. Matt Wilson used to say, if your playing is like a car windshield, you just want it to be clean so that every idea you're playing comes across super clearly. So those are 3-beat phrases. So right, the waltz. So say you're playing an idea like that in 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. By the way, you'll notice I'm also phrasing the ride cymbal in 3. That's something you can work on. What I actually like to do is to practice everything with just quarters. That's something I got from Jochen Ruckert, and gradually add in the skip notes where it feels appropriate. But it's the same thing. It's right out of Max Roach with his odd meters. So if it's a 3-beat phrase, it'll probably be some variation of, right? Because you can play But it feels a little bit cleaner and clearer and has a little more intention if you actually phrase that 3 on all your limbs. Right? Okay. So to get back to the point, to playing this in 4, we're playing along in 4. Right? That sounds 100% natural and idiomatic. You sound like you're staying out of your own way, and you sound like you're using the kit as a whole instrument rather than thinking of ostinatos and phrases. So that'll free you up. So, okay, how about 5-beat phrases, right? I talk about the 5 viola. So what if you're playing along in 4 and you've got something like... Well, pretend that's a 5-beat waltz. And find the kind of Max Roach thing that fits the best. Max liked to do beats 2 and 5 or beats 2 and 3 and 5. So, or, and again, if I'm adding more hat notes, I'm getting out of the way with the snare. But the phrase we were playing was something like... And you notice when I played the beat 5 on the snare, I got rid of the hat too. You don't necessarily have to do that, but that's a stylistic thing I like to do. Again, to just make sure everything's really clean. I'm emphasizing one voice at a time unless I'm intending to play a double stop for some kind of effect. So that 5... Right. So if you're playing a 5-beat phrase in 4, you wouldn't play... Right. You'd probably play 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do this with things out of Riley's book. And I remember in my lesson from a couple months ago about the 4 tricks to make your jazz drumming sicker, I hinted at this and I said you could take stuff out of Riley's book and hemiolize it. But you can also just take idioms and see how they phrase best. Okay, so a great example is, I think it's idiom number 3 out of the bass drum and snare comping section in Riley's book. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And I remember when I asked John this very question in a lesson, he said, well, play around with it. Let yourself phrase the ride cymbal and the hats any way you want until it feels logical. So he let me play around and then he stopped me. And he was like, then it finally started to swing. And I was like, well, what was I playing? He's like, you were playing the phrase. You're playing the 3-beat phrase. So, right? So, it's that 3-beat phrase straight out of Max Roach. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So there you go. There's some young swanger shit for you. I want to show you one hip thing because I'm gotta give you something to throw in the last chorus of the guitar solo. Okay, so the lick is this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 2 components. The first is this. It's just a 3-beat phrase. 1, 2, 3. So you could play this over 3. 1, 2, 3. So the second half of it is also in 3, but it's got a bass drum punctuation on it. So So you can play around with those both over 3 and over 4 in different combinations. But one of my favorite is to do just a classic hemiola. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 equals 32 beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4. But you can also do a 5-beat version. So that would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So any combination of 5 that cycles over that 4 works for that. And then finally, there are orchestrational possibilities. So obviously, and you can move the right hand too. So another little jazz tidbit for you to play with. Guys, I think I've given you enough for one lesson. I'm going to get out of here. Wanted to let you know that over the next couple of months, I'm going to be branching out, getting out of my comfort zone. I'm going to be doing something that I tried last year and I had a lot of fun with it, but I kind of haven't done it since then, but I want to get back to it, and that's collaborations. So if all falls into place, I've talked to some of my favorite drummers and I've gotten some pretty flattering responses in terms of, do these guys want to do interviews, collaboration, etc. So hopefully I'm going to get a few of them on the channel. We're going to talk about drums. I'm going to learn from them, and hopefully you can learn from us all. Time for the product placement portion. Do you like that alliteration? Do you like that astonishing, amazing alliteration? Anyway. So for those of you guys who have been watching the channel for various lengths of time, I don't know if you've seen, but I'm sending out a new email, and the email is basically, how can I help you? And essentially it's like, have you been watching the channel for a while, and do you trust me enough that you would study with me privately? Well, then I want to direct you to the 80/20 drummer coaching course. It's essentially like 6 months of lessons with me for a tiny fraction of the price, and everything's transcribed in a high resolution video. I've gotten rave reviews about it so far. It's been extremely flattering. If you're relatively new to the channel, but you're ready to go a little bit deeper, you want to get to know me a little bit better, but you're not quite ready to study with me, I recommend my gateway drug, the 80/20 roadmap. For an extremely affordable price, I will give you a taste of my paid courses, and this in particular addresses the 3 most common problems that most drummers I see, either my students or at clinics, have that very often have nothing to do with what they're asking me questions about. There are 3 issues that crop up over and over again, and this video will teach you how to recognize those in your playing and start to work through them. And if you don't see huge jumps in your playing, I will eat this shirt. I will eat this shirt. I'm just kidding. Can we cut that out? Make sure we cut that out. Anyway, guys, it's been real. I had a lot of fun. It's kind of a slow start on this one, but I felt like we got going. Can't wait to do some more content for you. Can't wait to do some collabs. Thanks so much, everybody, for being a fan. You guys complete me. All right, one love. The eternal triangle. Peace.